Hey everyone, this is Nick. This is my first painting recording. I've tried a couple other players, but none of them really working. I'm using Camtasia today, so hopefully we'll have a little bit of better luck. I'm going to be working in Adobe Photoshop, as you can tell, and I'm using a Wacom Cintiq for my hardware. Today we're going to be doing a painting for a client. The name of the piece is Ash Eater. It's a large dragon, kind of a traditional serpentine dragon with a long neck and long tail. The art description says he's going to be, a big nasty guy, but he can't be too big and nasty because there's another dragon who I'll be doing later who I guess is the really big, bad guy to mess with, and we don't want to outdo him. But the piece describes this dragon as, incinerating two human guards, so he's going to be breathing fire. Alright, so as you can see, I've already started the piece with a gradient. I do that a lot. I don't know why, it just sort of gives me a nice neutral tone to work on. I believe it's generally better to work with a kind of medium tone, or rather than black or a white background. I used to do a lot of line art back in the day, but I kind of prefer being able to add and subtract rather than just add dark lines and then shade it. But anyway, so what we're going to be doing now is I'm just going to be throwing some monochrome tones in. And the reason I'm doing that is it's nice to just sort of experiment with form without really committing. When I used to do a lot of line art, I'd have these teachers who would say, be really careful if you're doing line because it's very easy to get married to the line, and I didn't really take them very seriously when I first heard that expression. He said, I'm in control of my painting or my illustration. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. But it's not always the case. Once you start working with line, you sort of get stuck. You say, I've already put this much time in. I don't know if I really want to, move away from what I've been doing. But I found that if you sort of just don't use line, you don't get as stuck. You can kind of push and pull the tones. So I think what I want to do for this piece is I want the dragon to be kind of really showing off his neck, because he's supposed to be characteristically different from the other dragons, that he has a very long neck. So I'm going to give him sort of a Nessie Loch Ness Monster, huge neck. Also, I think I want him to be kind of dominating the piece, sort of hunched over or perched on something. And I'm going to see if I can pull that off. I'm not sure if I can. I did a couple of thumbnails the other day, but I couldn't quite get the pose I wanted within the frame because I'm constrained to a certain size because these will be used on playing cards. So the artwork has to be certain dimensions, which means that, everything has to fit within this composition. But as you can see, I'm sort of just not really doing anything too serious right now. I'm just sort of doing a general shape. You'll also notice I do a lot of work with the eyedropper tool. And the reason I do that is, sometimes people will kind of set aside a palette on a separate layer, like up here or something, and they'll just keep going back and forth to it. But that's not really how I work. What I usually do is I'll sort of throw down some tones I like, and then I'll sample them, and I don't have to, smudge them in or blur them in. I can just sort of paint them in at a lower opacity and just keep sampling and sampling as I go and get these transitions. Something that you obviously can't really do with traditional media as easily. But that's how I like to work. Maybe he should be, even more dominating the scene. So maybe I'll give him an even bigger neck, and he'll even go off. How about that? Off the canvas a little bit. I guess you can see where the head's gonna be. But like I said, I don't wanna be set on that just yet. I'm still trying to figure out how this might look. And I want him to be kind of scary, but he still has to look cool. And I want his pose to be sort of dynamic. So I don't want him just kind of sitting there breathing fire. I think I kind of want him really leaning into it, tensing up. Stupid face. Maybe I'll use his wings to blot out the background and the sun. Yeah. Sample some of this bright color or shade. And he'll have some fire coming out of there. Maybe I want him to be a little bit more 3/4, not quite as much of a profile. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, we're not stuck with this. We haven't made any commitments. We're just pushing and pulling. That looks silly, but I'll come back to it. And there's specifically a mention of guards on fire or guards being burned and running away. And maybe that's what we'll put in the foreground. It's a little bit too light. So we'll have a guard here kind of going, oh, running away from the dragon on fire. It's also good because, it can save me time if I have a large foreground figure. Kind of taking up a lot of screen real estate. Also, I can throw his buddy in. So there's something I really like to do when I paint, especially if I'm doing fantasy or sci-fi stuff. So, as you know, a lot of the stuff in sci-fi and fantasy is clearly fictional or fantastical. So it can be difficult for a viewer to kind of mentally, subconsciously relate and get a idea of how big the thing he's actually looking at is. So a really good technique, at least I find, in order to make your viewer understand how big something is to either throw people in or to throw objects, just mundane, ordinary objects that people can really understand the scale of. And, they'll say, well, I know how big a horse is, or I know how big a shovel, or whatever is. And that shovel next to that dragon is tiny. So that must be one big dragon. You get the idea. Yeah, I don't love this guy. But we're still really early. This is just a sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw another guard back here. And he'll be sort of in the midground. And why don't we do something a little bit more dramatic? He'll be kind of stumbling forward. And the idea is that when they see this guard, the viewer that is, they'll say, oh wow, that guy's, he's pretty small too. So that thing in the background, which is clearly further away, must be really big. Alrighty. like where this is going a little bit more now. I just have to fix this goofy face. Now, I used to do dragons a lot when I was a kid. I kind of moved away from them, but because of this project, I've been, I guess, re-embracing them. So I used to have all these cool ideas of how dragons should look, and maybe I'll try to bring some of those back out when I'm working on these. I did another piece which you can see on my DeviantArt. I haven't put it on my portfolio site yet, but I'm sure by the time this video gets out there, it'll be available there too. It's a lava swimmer. And it's this dragon who's sort of a big serpent, and he lives in a magma lake by a volcano. And he had a really cool look. I really liked the way I did his face. It's sort of almost like a vulture. Vulture meets a dinosaur. It's got this kind of bony, beak-like, a little bit unnerving look. And I like that look on dragons, but I don't know if that's quite right. This guy's Ash Eater, so he's a black dragon. I don't want him to look like a D&D black dragon. I want this to be a very separate intellectual property. But Ash Eater sounds sort of like, excuse me, just taking a drink. I don't know, maybe like kind of like an end all. Like this creature sort of, when you see this guy, it's over. So maybe I'll try to make him look especially death or deadly. I'll give him some sort of features which just make you think of death when you see him. Because there's some other dragons I've done for this project, like the Hotspark Hatchling, which is just this baby dragon, and it's a cute guy. It looks like a salamander. You do not think of death when you see him. Everyone says, "Oh, what a cutie," but this guy should be a little bit more sinister. And I think he's a named dragon, and I think the named dragons really should have a sort of more keener, intelligent look to them. So I think I want this guy to be kind of like, very aware of what he's doing. This is a very evil dragon. He's fully sentient for what he's doing, and I guess he relishes the idea of causing death and misery. But like I said, I don't know. I'm just making it up. Sometimes I think it's easier to paint a picture or do a painting when you sort of have a little bit of a story to go on, even if it's not something that's expressly written in your art order. But just for the artist, they can make it if they want. I mean, I have a lot of freedom on this piece, but just something to sort of give you a platform to work on. So I think my guy is going to be, this really not nice dragon. But yeah. So right now I'm just working on the sketch. This actually should move away from his face because I'm starting to detail a little bit too much. But this is just the sketch. The way that I usually work is I will, I'll get the art order and I'll talk it over with the client. And then what I do is I start working on sketches. And once I have a sketch done, I'll send it back and I'll say, this is what I've come up with. What do you think? And the client will say, well, I really like this, or, I don't like this. Can you change that? And that way I can give him an idea of what I'm thinking, but I don't have to, I don't have to do a whole painting only to go back and just change everything. That saves me time, saves them money. It's good for everybody. I don't know. I kind of wish I could do a poll, but I don't know how spiky I want his head to be. I have sort of mixed feelings about dragons with horns. I think they look really cool, but I don't know. I don't always like them. I don't know. I'm kind of not making a lot of sense. I'll try it out on this guy, but I sort of think that, I like to use nature a lot in my inspiration. And when I think of lizards with horns, the only really thing I can think of is the horny devil, which is like this little spiky guy who lives in the desert. And he squirts blood out of his eyes. It's really strange, but it's true. You should check it out, Google it or YouTube it. Um, they're self-defense. They squirt blood, and it's very unnerving, as you can imagine. Um, so I don't really think of serpentine dragons as having horns. That's just me. I mean, I'm sure there are tons of dragons out there with horns that are serpentine, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me. I kind of think of stockier dragons as having horns, kind of like they actually use them for butting or whatever. Wouldn't really make sense if you have a really long neck. You could get snagged on your own horn, puncture your wing or something. But anyway, I like to think about that sort of stuff when I paint. It helps me kind of, in my opinion anyway, create more anatomically believable things. And they say when you paint fictional creatures and whatever, that you should always sort of try to go majority realistic and then a little bit of it fantasy. I think it's like 60-40 or 80-20 or something. 80 real, 20% made up. And the idea is that if you don't have anything that people can understand in there, like if your concept is just utterly bizarre, people really are not going to make heads or tails of it. And some of the potency of your work kind of just melts. So try to keep something that people can relate to. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to draw real, dump trucks and cars and stuff all the time. But, if you're going to do something, at least try to make it look like it's believable, like something that someone might see on Discovery Channel or something. And if you're looking for some information on how to do this sort of a thing, you should really check out books on evolutionary biology or anatomy. Just see how animals work. And I'm actually breaking that rule a little bit now because I usually do dragons with 4 limbs. I'm sorry. They have the 2 hind legs, and then they have the four legs in the front. Not 4 is in the number, but FORE, 4 legs. And the reasoning being it's sort of like a bat's anatomy where the front, the arms have become wings, and the hands have kind of evolved to have webbing between them. The thumb acts as the little hook that you'd see here. But in this case, I'm actually doing this guy. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'll change my mind. I was going to do him as a 6-limbed, sort of more Dungeons and Dragons style dragon. But that musculature just never really made sense to me. I don't really see how you can fit that many limbs on such a small area. Flight is actually very difficult, and birds have a lot of evolution to let them do it. They have hollow bones, they have very slight frames, they have enormous wingspans. So I can't really imagine, a dragon which weighs a couple tons having enough musculature and having that extra pair of limbs. It just doesn't really make sense to me. But then again, it's a fantasy animal, so you do have some leeway. But anyway, if you're thinking about doing or considering evolutionary biology and that sort of stuff, proper anatomy while you're working on these animals, fictitious or otherwise, you should really check out a book by Terryl Whitlach. It's really great. I don't know the title off the top of my head. I think it's called Drawing Creatures Real and Imagined, or Real and Imaginary. But I'll make sure to provide a link in the description of this video when it's finished. But anyway, she actually worked for a university, if I remember correctly, for a long time, or did publications anyway for universities on evolutionary biology and animal anatomy, and she's very good. She has some very good tips, and she also does fictional creatures while trying to think of them in a more realistic way, which I really like. So this guy's sort of got this like stance where he's just sort of pounding these 2 feet down, and I like this leg here, but I don't like this leg here. So we're gonna do a little bit of work on that, just to kind of flesh it out a little bit better. Get it? Um, so yeah, and I think I want his form to be a little bit closer. Maybe we'll have some, a little bit of foreshortening on it to make it seem like it's really coming, not at the viewer, but forward in space. What we might do is, grab some of this shade and just kind of give it a little bit of aerial perspective. Aerial perspective is, if not the, but definitely one of my favorite techniques when painting. I learned a lot about it from reading James Gurney's book about painting light and color. And once again, I highly recommend it. If I mention books during these videos, you should definitely write them down, check them out. I'm not paid by the authors, aside from sending them my compliments every once in a while. I don't really have any relations to them, but I'm not benefiting from it anyway. Is the point I'm trying to make. But they are excellent sources, very good reference books, very instructional. I learned a lot about just painting and technique from reading their works. But anyway, so aerial perspective is super important because when you look outside, you instantly are able to deduct how far things are by sort of seeing how focused they are, how sharply defined they are, how much contrast you can visually see on them. Things that are further away, if you look out your window right now, if it's daytime anyway, you'll see that objects that are further away are more blue. They are usually less contrast. They're lighter colored. And you can mimic this when you paint. And it will really make people think that, oh, wow, like I can tell that this guy's receding to the background, or that object is way far away. Because there's just so much air in the way. And that's what actually causes aerial perspective is, just literally air or dust or whatever floating around interferes with the light, and it just obstructs the view. So it looks lighter and less focused. All right, so this leg is a little bit too tree-shaped. It looks like he's sort of, I like the idea of him planting his foot, but I don't want his foot to look like a tree. So we're going to give it a little bit of a curve, just a little bit. I don't want it to be too much because there's supposed to be a little bit of foreshortening going on. And we're going to have to paint in his lower half because right now he's just a floating upper half, which looks kind of bizarre. It looks like he has, instead of having rear legs, he has rear wings, which I've never seen before. Traditionally, wings are shoulder hinged. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I'm talking about. They're not located on the hips. Though I guess that would be a cool idea. Maybe I'll mess around with that another time. Stay tuned. You'll find out if I do. Alrighty. So, yay. I don't hate this piece anymore. I really like where it's starting to go. These guys are still really messy, but that's okay for now. We're still just fooling around. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just adding some negative space. I'm, just sort of removing these shades here, or at least lightening them so that I can start to define his hindquarters without darkening it. The idea is I want to maintain depth through aerial perspective. So things in the foreground are going to appear lighter. Things in the foreground are going to appear darker, more saturated, etc. Things in the background, or further away from the viewer's viewpoint, are going to appear, lighter, more blue, less defined, etc. So I can't have things in the background. I can't just paint them in more, dark. I have to make everything else around them lighter so that I can keep them in contrast to everything near them darker, but not darker than everything else in the piece, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to throw a leg in here like that. Sometimes I notice that my brush stops moving. That's not, well, it could be. It could be because of an issue with the recording device, but I also like to kind of lean back away from my painting. Sometimes I squint just a little bit, and then I come back to where I'm working. I usually keep my face a little bit under a foot away from the tablet when I work. And that can be dangerous to do just because you can sort of lose sight of your composition. So, like I said, I like to, every once in a while, just kind of bring my face in, or bring my face out, look at the piece, sort of take everything in from a compositional standpoint rather than a detail standpoint. And then I'll go back and fix things if I don't like where they're headed. And this is awkward because I haven't quite decided how I want his body to look, because right now his neck goes like this, and then I think I want his spine to be like that, where his tail will come around, but there's just a lot of kind of 3D thinking going on here, which is, it's not easy, especially when you have a creature like this. I don't have, well, I guess I could. I probably should get a toy dragon to play with, but it can be difficult to figure out where everything goes. That's one of the challenges of doing paintings like this. And does the art description say anything about whether he's actually actively breathing fire? It says frying one or more town guards with a mighty breath of fire. So, yeah, we'll keep that. We'll keep him burning people. It'll make some interesting lighting, and you know what? Maybe I won't even have to worry about the rear leg because it'll be obscured by the flame anyway. Sometimes it's okay to leave out details like that. You can obscure them with smoke, fog, dust. I like to call it cheating. It's not really cheating, obviously. You can do whatever you want. It's your painting, but it can save you time, and it can actually make a painting look kind of cool when things are sort of left up to the imagination of the viewer. Now, I don't want it to look like this guard is having his head set on fire by this blast of fire, so I'm going to have to give it some perspective. And, have the fire like hitting the ground here or something. I'm gonna take a drink. Okay. So there's one thing I really love to do with dragon wings, and flesh in general. And that's subsurface scattering. So subsurface scattering is kind of a buzzword, but what it means is that when light hits certain substances, especially fleshy substances or water-filled materials, the light will come in and then come back out again, or it will appear as if the light is not fully absorbed, because in reality, most things do not absorb light 100%. If you find that you paint someone's, or you're doing a painting of someone's skin, and it just looks really fake and plastic-like, it could be because you're not using enough subsurface scattering. But subsurface scattering is actually a fairly advanced technique. You have to be very careful how you use it, otherwise things can look very strange very quickly. I would not call myself a master of it, but it is something I like to use. So in this case, I'm going to have the wings, the membranous parts of the wings, be not entirely opaque. The idea being that just like if you hold the webbing of your hand against a strong light source, you can sort of see through it a little bit. You'll get this kind of pinkish red light that comes through. And we're going to be trying to get the same effect with these wings, which is, in this case, it won't be red and pink because I imagine it'd be more of a yellow. But because that red and pink comes from the blood vessels and the blood within your body. But what we're going to try to do is sort of mimic that effect. And we're going to do that like this. The idea being that the kind of digital areas of the wing, and by digital I mean finger, like over here, are going to be darker because there's bone and solid material there which can absorb the light more readily. Whereas the membranous areas, such as here, are going to be lighter, where the light is able to come through and the viewer can see it more easily. It makes sense if you think about it. If you don't understand, I'm sorry, I'm probably not explaining it well enough, but try it out. Or go put a flashlight behind your hand and take a look. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, like I said, I usually like to have things be a little bit more anatomically correct, and I need to fix this wing if I'm going to do that. The reason being, at least if you've ever seen a bat wing, and if you haven't, you really should check it out. It's very interesting. Bats' wings are really just modified hands, or feet, I guess, since I don't think bats ever had hands. But anyway, so essentially, the thumb here would actually be turned up like this. Because if you think about it, I'll do it on a second layer so you can see what I'm talking about. A hand looks like this. You've got the wrist, thumb, fingers, right? Cool. And then you've got the arm, shoulder. Now the way a bat works is you've got the shoulder, you've got a longer arm bone here, the humerus, I think, and then the radius and the ulna are extended out. And then what happens is that the thumb becomes a hook, like this, and the fingers, so instead of having your pointer finger, you have this very long finger like this. And then webbing grows between them. And then usually there's the body like this, or the leg comes out like here. But you get the idea. See, this is just an extended arm with fingers. So right now, that's not what our dragon looks like. And that's just because I was doing a shape study. I wasn't actually trying to get it to be 100% my first pass. But we're going to fix that up a little bit now. And what that means is that all the fingers, or all the digital areas, should be radiating from the same source, which will be up here. So we're actually going to bulk that out a little bit, bring the thumb in. Like so. And it's not a perfect hand, but it doesn't have to be. And not because this is a fantasy creature, but because the angle's a little bit weird. And yeah, so we'll do something like that. And then we'll actually extend the webbing down to here. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary of the making of Lord of the Rings. It came with the special edition DVD box set. But there are some very funny interviews with John Howe about how he draws the steeds of the Nazgul, which are these kind of, I think they're called fell beasts, and they're these very large, dragony type things. Really nasty. But anyway, John gets into this huge debate with another artist from the crew because the guy's saying, hey, you can't put shoulder or elbow spikes on your dragon. It doesn't make sense because if it was trying to flap its wing, it just wouldn't work. It'd puncture itself in the side or do something terrible to itself. And essentially what it came down to was John saying, well, I think it looks cool. So, maybe in tribute to John Howe, I'm just going to throw a little bit of an elbow spike on here because it does look pretty cool. All right, well, if you're watching this, John, that's for you. Okay, so that's cool. I actually think this hand position is a little bit boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to save. I like to do things in iterations, as you can tell. And then I'm going to merge my layers. Duplicate the layer. And then this is a fun thing you can do. So I never really thought of Liquify tool as being a painting tool. I always thought of it as sort of a photo manipulation tool. But I watched a bunch of tutorials from Darkin also, aka Mike Darkin Lim. And he is way more bold with the Liquify tool than I used to be. And I realized that you can actually use it a little more gallivantly if you'd like. You can sort of really change up your picture a lot if you want without having to go back and paint everything in. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use this tool to change up the position of this wing a little bit. This is another time-saving trick. You might not have exactly time lying around. I know I don't. With I've got a bunch more pieces to do, and I don't do digital painting full time. I actually have a day job. So after I'm done for the day, around 5 or whenever, it's time to work for the rest of the night. Okay, so I'm going to make another layer. And I'm just going to touch up what I just did and merge these two. Use the lasso tool. We're going to... I don't like that. Change my mind. Which is okay. It's always okay to change your mind, unless your deadline is fast approaching, then you sometimes have to settle. But in this case, that is clearly not the case, as we're just doing the sketch. You'll notice I'm not really going up to the menus a lot. It's very important if you want to be semi-professional or professional to you gotta save time. Time is very expensive, especially if you respect yourself and your work and you want to be paid. You can't overcharge your client because you're spending too much time doing silly little things that you could be avoiding. So for etc., I don't really go to the menu bars anymore unless I'm doing very specific, render or something like that. What I like to do instead, there we go. What I like to do instead is I set all my own hotkeys, which is kind of funny because if I ever sit on someone else's computer and they ask me to do something in Photoshop, you'll see me frantically start pounding on keys that don't do anything or start doing other weird things that I don't really use. So make your hotkeys however you want, as long as you don't work at, if you don't do your work at a school computer or something and you change it and everyone comes in and says, what the heck, why is this doing this? But if you have your own copy of Photoshop on your own computer, customize it, whatever works for you, whatever makes you feel like you are able to work more efficiently, more comfortably, whatever saves you time. Okay. We're going to have a little bit of character to this dragon. We're going to have him have a little bit more shredded wings. The idea being that he's been around the block. This guy's, he's not a noob. Not so shredded as that he wouldn't be able to fly, but just shredded enough so that it looks like he's seen better days. That wing still seems really small to me. Let's see if we can. The problem is I want to be able to keep I really like this area of the wing, and I want that to be visible, but this wing just seems almost comically small to me. How about that? Okay, cool. That worked fine. I'll actually just get rid of this little hook here because I want the viewer to think it's somewhere further off over here. All right. So we've got our dragon, at least partially. I'm going to blend in where I just copied and pasted so it's not so obvious. Little spikies. Little rough spikes. They don't have to be perfect yet. Believe me, they'll get polished later. He's got, kind of a good looking anatomy, which I'm fairly happy with. I'm sure I'll tweak it later if I need to. And I kind of hint that his wing actually ends there. There we go. Okay, cool. So sometimes people ask me how I paint fire, and it's actually kind of complex. It's not going to be that much available to you in this tutorial, or this video anyway. This isn't really a tutorial. But in my other stuff, or at least in the later stuff, you'll be able to see. What I usually just do is, right now I'm sort of, like I said, blocking it in. I don't want to get married to the lines. So I'm just sort of fooling around. But later, once I get the go-ahead, I will begin doing the colors and the highlighting and some shadows and detail work. And that's when I really make the fire come to life. And if you want to see how to do it, you should definitely stick around, because there will be some really good tips in there for you, I promise. For both seasoned and aspiring painters. I do it a very specific way, which I really like, well, at least I like the results of, and it seems that my clients do too. I'm going to throw that knee back in. Doesn't have to be 100% anatomically sound, just sort of, he has a leg and it's in that area. We're going to kind of hide that a little bit with smoke and stuff. Now, how do I want to do the tail here? His tail would probably, if we follow the curve of his body, it'd probably be kind of not really that visible, to be honest. It'd be, kind of going off screen. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to have it go like this and then back. Kind of a nice swoosh of the tail. So what I'll do is I'll sort of hint that there is a tail coming back on that imaginary curve that we just sort of plotted out in our heads. And we'll have it coming back around like this. And I know it's super faint, but what we're going to do is later, we're going to do a little trick to pop the contrast up, and hopefully it'll be more legible. And we're just putting some spikes on so we know what that is. Cool. All right, now for the guards. Dragon, I'm actually okay with for now. Let's do some of these guards a little bit. So the client specifically said how he wanted the guards to look. They're sort of Norse-inspired. They're going to have tunics and breeches and belts. So he didn't provide any images. He provided an image for the helmet, which was very good of him. I really do appreciate that. It's sort of a, a Viking helmet. So we're going to have to kind of show that. It's like a Viking skull cap, kind of a conical shaped helmet. Really dinky looking. I'd hate to wear something like this if I was a guard. Ugh. I think the light source, aside from the fire, is going to be coming from this angle, so we're actually going to bring that here, and then we'll have bounce coming from behind like that. And I think the demographic for this game is actually kind of wide, so I don't want anything too horrifying. Like, I don't want this guy's face melting off and him screaming and stuff that's not going to be too kid-friendly. Like, I mean, charred remains are one thing, but seeing somebody actually die is a little bit different, so we're going to avoid that. I'm just reading this description. Let's see. Over a chain shirt. So they have a chain shirt. Great. Chainmail is really fun to do. I have a great way of doing it, which I learned from Darkin, using his custom tools, his custom painting brush download. I really suggest you get it, and I give him a lot of respect for making it. It's an incredible set of brushes. For the majority of them, you'll never use them. I'm going to say 99% of them you're never going to use. A lot of digital painting you can do with any brush, even though just a round brush. But some of his techniques are incredibly time-saving, especially his chainmail technique. I can't give him enough praise on that one. So when the time comes, I will show you how to do it. You can also check it on his website. I believe it's enlighten.com with 2 I's. Or I hope it's still up, but he has a website called The Art of Darkin, which is his portfolio page. And he used to have tutorials there. I'm not sure if they're still there. I don't want to lead you to the wrong place, but I will make sure to post a link. Alright, so we're just going to give this guy a little bit of a face so we know he's a person. And like I said, we're not going to go crazy. This is just the sketch phase. And I want him to be a little bit darker on the side, obviously, just because there's such an intense light source here. And if this were a photograph or whatever, it would be super blown out where the dragon was breathing fire. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Don't leave the eyes like that. Or that. Actually, it's probably best if I just leave his eyes in shadow a little bit. Do like a little hint of something. Got to give him some ears. He looks a little bit elfish right now, so we're gonna bring those in. I want to darken that a little bit. I mean, it is the inside of his mouth. It probably should be pretty dark. It looks a little bit like a dunce cap. I'm so sorry, guard. We're going to have a little bit of some sort of scattering on the ear. You know, there would be some light shining through the ear if there's a fire burning behind your ear. And we'll do a little bit of the wide-eyed look, which, I mean, it's not going to stay like that, but just so you can tell this guy is freaking out. A little cartoony. But yeah, these guys should be caricatures of caricatures of absolute abject terror, as I sure would in this situation. And quickly give him a hand. No joke. He's gonna have kind of these goofy gloves. Alright, let's see if we can find that here it is. Now, I haven't done this in a while, but as you can see, this is a super cheaty way to do it. And once again, I did not develop this method. Actually, I think this is incorrect. I think the way you're supposed to do it is using a different brush, but I guess it depends on what kind of chainmail you want to do. I think you're supposed to do it with this brush, but that's okay. Anyway, the idea here is to hint at chainmail, whereas I could go in and paint them. I could go in and paint them all by hand. These little ringlets. It's definitely not worth it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to do little brush strokes that represent the volume and the pattern of the chainmail, but we're not going to actually go in and do it all because that takes way too long and we're on a deadline, right? And I guess we'll try giving him some. Let's see, he has a chainmail shirt, so why not? That could be. Can maybe go over his shirt a little bit, you know, or over his tunic. The shirt has a collar or a hood or something. There we go. It's barely even noticeable, but that's okay. Gotta remember what brush I was using. I believe I was using this guy. Yeah, that looks about right. Actually, we're just gonna use the round brush. It's fine. The round brush is a fine brush. You really shouldn't hate on the round brush. I do most of my work with the round brush. And I swear I can speak English too. I'm just feeling stuttery today. How's that for terrified? Anyway, I spent too much time on his face for this stage anyway, but I kind of like to. I can't help it. Faces are fun to do. And I guess it will save me some time later, but we both know why. And, let's see. Let's give him a belt. It's not light enough, or not dark enough. There we go. Another reason I like to sample versus use a distinct palette is because when I work, I don't work at 100% opacity. I usually work around like 50 or 60. And, you know, if you ever do like a line, like a hard line to sort of give yourself an outline of where you're going to be coloring something in, just so you have like a neat edge, it looks not so hot if you do, ooh, too much. It doesn't look so great if you do if you overlap your brush strokes too much, because then you get these overlap marks. You don't need all your teeth. Add some character. Lose a few teeth, it'll add some character. You'll have one of those tucked belts that comes over. Like that. And he'll be running, obviously. Alrighty. We should probably give these guys some hair. Otherwise, it's going to be baldies running around. When we go to the coloring phase, it'll be easier to do the face. Since, there's a lot of areas of the face that are just sort of hard to do in black and white because there's so many tones that go into it. You know what? I can't help it. I'll ask the client about this, but I kind of really want him to have a nose guard on his helmet. I don't know. I think it just works better. I can't put my finger on why, but alrighty. So that guard I've spent way too much time on. I probably shouldn't. Actually, sort of as a punishment to myself, I think I'm going to just do that to him a little bit so that I can't make out all the features that I just spent hours working on because they're probably not even going to stay, to be honest. Alright. Okay, so now we got this guard in the background. This guy's going to be, I think he'll be on fire, just straight up. So he will be kind of almost just silhouetted. And I want them to sort of both have this, not chunky, but it should look like they're wearing a lot of gear, if you know what I mean. Like these guys didn't go in. They weren't exactly pushovers. They might have been, green per se, but they weren't just like some bumbling idiots. They actually went in with armor and they were equipped, but it didn't work out so well. Conehead. let's do some more fire. I want the fire to be just horrific, wreaking casualties on these poor guys. So it's going to be really all over the place, sort of just, it's impossible to escape. A conflagration, if you will. Now, I rarely do use the eraser tool. I try to avoid it. But since I'm working on a separate layer, and the way I do fire is very particular, I'm going to be using it a little bit. So this guy's going to be kind of hauling to get out of there, but it's not going to be enough. Sorry, buddy. Sometimes I feel bad for some of the people I have to paint into these paintings, because, I mean, I don't have to, but you know what I mean. No one wants to be set on fire. Why don't we do a little trick? So it looks like this guy had been sort of running from the fire in this direction, and the fire just came after him. Just kind of speared out. Add a little bit of depth to the piece, rather than just, whoosh, plateau. It's going to be, oh my god, this fire is everywhere. Run if you can. Bring up the hardness. Man, I love painting fire. And, maybe we should even paint in another guard over here. Just some poor sucker who was a little bit closer to the flames, and, was just, oh no! Caught up in the flames. Lame. What a loser. Yeah, that stinks. And what we're going to do is we're going to borrow a little bit of this guy's color just to give it a little bit of a silhouetted shadow of, holy moly, that's bright, Alrighty. So I like how that's coming along. I don't know if these guys have a symbol on their chest of any kind, because I always feel like tunics need something there, you know what I mean? Let's see. They have red shirts. You know what, I'll ask the client before I put anything there. But I'd really like there be something here. Maybe just like a castle or something. Just something. It doesn't really matter what. I just want it not to be blank. Of course, you have to make it match the pattern. The motion. There we go. So, okay, he's got something on now. I'm happy with that. Maybe they're the Spire Guard. I don't know. We're gonna save. And I'm gonna fix up the shape of this helmet. Check it out. And why don't we give him, I guess it would be on this side. He'd have a sword or something. So, ooh. Thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. Oops. Can't use the eraser tool, we only got one layer, kids. Unless you're making something with preserved alpha layers. Oh yeah. A little bit of a room light here. I think he deserves it. Okay, so there's a very important thing you need to do. Well, you don't need to. I'm not going to tell you how to paint, but I like to do it. This is a little something I learned from Darkin. So what you do is, in order to make sure your composition is sound, I set a hotkey for this, but otherwise you just have to go into, I think it's image size and flip it or whatever, image adjustments. But, oh yeah, when you flip an image like this, your brain recognizes it as a completely new image, and it looks at it differently. And you can usually fairly quickly see if there's something compositionally wrong. Now, I was well aware that there's an empty space over here, and I plan on fixing it. But now it's even made a little bit more glaring by the fact that we can see it like that. So we're going to fix that. We need to put something there. I don't know what, though. I haven't really thought about it yet. Ooh, that didn't look good. So what would look good here? Well, let's see. We've already got our guard in the front, so we don't want to put another person here. Can't really do, well, I guess we could do fire, but let's add a little bit of variety. What if we did, I should do this live, I really should, so that I can get some people yelling things in the stream or something. Maybe if the flame went like, or something, I don't know. I just don't know. I really just don't know. Let's duplicate this layer while we're thinking. Maybe you can mess with dimensions and, yeah, but I like where the neck is. Just do a little bit. You know what? Maybe we don't need to put something there. Maybe just having the shadows and showing that something really serious is going on is enough. Maybe what we can do there is just sort of put some details to establish scale. So I'm going to put like, I don't know, gravel or something. And what we'll do is we'll just something like that, I guess. Like noise, pretty much. And of course, as we get further away, not only does it get smaller, but it's going to be getting fainter. And what this will do is you'll say, okay, well, they are on, sake of argument, cobblestone. And I know how big a rock is, right? So it must be getting further away. Cool. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe this is like the inside of a village or a keep or something, and this dragon is just so, I don't know, hardcore that it doesn't even care. Just lands in the middle of your castle and starts lighting you on fire. That would really suck. I think that's what kind of dragon this is going to be. So I'm just going to put a couple more tongues of flame kind of emanating from the blast area, from the danger zone. Maybe some like little fire on the ground. And what we're going to do first is we're going to clean this up just a little bit. We're going to do a new layer. This is going to be an adjustment layer. And we're going to pop up the contrast. So that's actually not terrible, but we don't want it that strong. We can bring the brightness up or down. We can really, oh my god, supernova, atomic blast. Something like that, maybe. And that way you can see that the tail I was talking about is a little bit better defined. It's not super defined yet. Once I do that, I save and put on a new layer. I'm sure there's a hotkey for that, but I just, meh. Let's try to give this dragon a little bit more mass. He's a contender. He's in the foreground and the midground. Or I guess the midground and background, really. He's not really in the foreground. This poor guy is. His tail should be visible. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to say, hey, that's where his leg goes. Now you know. And maybe we'll darken it up a little bit to represent the fact that the claw is all the way up here in your business. Or as my girlfriend would say, all up in your Kool-Aid, not even knowing the flavor. I want the claw a little bit more crazy, kind of like really into the ground there. Just, you know. And I'll give it a little bit of shadow or something underneath. And why don't we paint a little bit more fire in to obscure some of the details and make the flames a little bit more widespread. Sorry, I was drinking a fizzy drink, so I'm suppressing gases releasing from my stomach and my mouth. I don't want to be burping in the mic. Holy moly! Actually, this is sort of inspiring me, sort of like a, like a Molotov cocktail hit the ground, like these like runners almost of just like flame like squirting outwards. That's cool. I like that idea. I would run too. Especially if I saw these little tongues of fire going everywhere. Holy crap, that's terrifying. And it really helps establish where the ground is a little bit. You know, if we imagine these things are kind of snaking around on the ground, now we know, well, that's where the ground plane is. Just gotta be careful that my angles are right. I don't want it to be ridiculous. I actually think I'm gonna just tweak it a little bit. There we go. That is more credible. And I always like having kind of embers, but those are not the real embers. I actually have a tool, a brush I use for them, but I can't help myself. I have to put them in. So I don't want to darken the claws anymore because of the aerial perspective. So what I have to do is I have to lighten the areas around the claws. Ah, very clever, no? Sweet. Alrighty. Now what I think I'm going to do, like I was talking about either in a village or in a courtyard or something, I'm going to put like a castle turret here. Just so that people who view the image are going to be like, oh my god, he's in the castle. Help! Save the women and children. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't want it to get in the way of the dragon, but I just want it to be kind of like, give it a sense of where this is happening. Crenellations. Okay, so I think that's good enough for the sketch for now. Um, Maybe I lied and I'll just do a little bit more here. Trixie, I don't want to darken, or I don't want to lighten up the dragon at all, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this into a darken layer. Like that. And that means that this is totally off, so we'll have to do it like this. Okay. I think that's good for the sketch. The dragon's details I'll hammer out later when I get the approval. But let's just save it. And we'll save it as a JPEG. You can see some of the other dragons I've been doing. Ooh, pretty. He's not a dragon, this guy here, but that's okay. Okay, so that's it for this video. It's just under an hour and a half for a sketch, which is a little bit slower than I normally do. I kind of got a little bit tied up in here, and I was explaining some stuff. But, you know, speed isn't everything, but it does help. So once I get the approval, I'll go into the rendering and coloring in the next probably video or two, and we'll see how things go. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll have some more content for you soon.